It is finals week, and I know how precious time is. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm just going to make my screen a little bigger. So I think we're good. So thank you so much for joining me tonight, especially in the midst of finals week. I really honor your time, so I'm going to get right into the content as quickly as I possibly can so that you have all the information you need to really rock your final exams and start using the information that I'm providing tonight. Before I do that, I do want to explain a little bit about me and where I'm coming from. I am a new RN. I actually just received my license in February, and I graduated from a full-time nursing program with honors while I was working 2 jobs, running an online business, creating weekly YouTube content, and really just trying to enjoy life in the process. I definitely was not one of those students who spent all day studying or pulling all-nighters. In fact, I don't think I ever pulled an all-nighter in nursing school because I was really strategic about how I studied, and I was really good at knowing what homework assignments were busy work and which ones were actually worth my time. And I don't share this information to brag about my experience or anything like that. I really share it because I hope that it inspires some of you, and it also gives you hope that you can do this as well. I was not the smartest girl in class. I actually failed out of a bio major the first time I went to college because I just didn't have the study skills needed in order to get through a rigorous major like that. And honestly, the key to good grades is developing really good study skills. I personally was not taught the study skills needed to succeed in college, in high school, and I wasn't even taught it when I was in college. It wasn't until I got into the nursing program and the summer before that I really started researching and applying study skills in order to make me successful when I did start my semester. So tonight, I hope that I'm going to be able to teach you some of these strategies, the strategies that I use during finals week. So tonight, by the end of the webinar, what you will have learned is how to figure out what your chances of passing are, how to use your past exams as a strategy or tool for your finals, how to figure out what to cover or how you're going to cover all the material that was given to you during the semester before this final exam, how to create your study sheet or a cram sheet for your final, and how to actually approach the act of studying. Because there is a particular method of studying that is more effective than others. I want to preface the material that I'm about to give you with this. Finals week is not the time to learn information that you should have learned during your semester. There just isn't enough time for you to learn all that material. Semesters are 16 to 18 weeks long for a reason, and there's no way that you're going to cram that information into a 3 to 5 day period. Your study sessions for finals should really be more of a review of the information that was taught to you in lecture. And then you'll have periods during your study session, which we will get into later, where you're going to be focusing on areas that you need to kind of nurture a little bit more, because when you were tested on it the first time around, you didn't really grasp the concepts. But as always, with every rule, there is an exception, and the exception to this rule is if your final is not cumulative. If your final is not cumulative and it's only based on the information that was given to you in the last 2 to 3 weeks of your semester, then of course you have enough time to cover that material for the exam. But if your final is cumulative, it should really be more of a review. Now, before you can really decide on how you're going to attack your study session, how you're going to study for your finals. You need to have a realistic understanding of where you currently stand in your class. And there is no better way to find out what your chances of passing are than to go to your professor and ask. Sit with them, take a look at your grades. Take a look at what you've gotten with your past exams. Take a look at what your chances are of passing the class if you pass this final, and what grade you actually need on this final. Your professors are there to help you. I know sometimes you get really good ones and you get really bad ones, and it doesn't seem like they're there to help you, but they're there to make sure that you get the information that you need in order for you to move on with this major or this class and be able to go out into the real world. So make use of your professor and figure out what your chances are of passing. Once you know your grade, your approach to studying is going to be 100% based on whether you are borderline failing or way above passing. And more importantly, it's going to be based on your own personal goals, because not everybody wants to be an A student. Not everybody's priorities are the same. There were points in my nursing school journey where I just wanted to pass, and I would celebrate a 76 on an exam the same way I would celebrate a 92. And yes, I got C's in nursing school, and I still graduated with honors. One grade isn't going to affect your whole freaking college career, so get that mentality out. If you're borderline passing, you're really going to have to evaluate your past exams, and that's something that we're going to cover later on in the webinar. And if you're way above passing, you need to decide whether or not you want to shoot for that A or that next letter grade, or whether or not you're cool where you're at. You just want to like keep cruising along. You want to enjoy that last week of college, and you want to stay where you are. College and grades aren't everything, and there's so many other factors, so many other things that are taken into consideration when you go looking for jobs and when you're trying to find that dream job. Experience sometimes matters more than your grades do. So decide what your goals are and create your study game plan around that. Once you know where you stand, it's really time to evaluate your past exams. What I want you to do before you even begin to study for your final is I want you to gather all your exams. If you don't have your exams because they don't hand them back, I know in nursing school, mine were all electronic, so all I had to go based off of were my grades and my own study material. So if you don't have the exact grades, exams passed back to you, then go ahead and just gather your grades and gather the study material that you use for your final or that you use to study for the semester. And what I want you to do is I want you to put them in piles. I want you to put all the grades and the information from exam 1 in one pile, the information and grades from exam 2 in another, and so forth until you have all your different exams and the study material all in different piles. Now what I want you to do is I want you to organize it from lowest grade to highest. Again, you're going to want to organize it from lowest grade to highest. The reason why I have you do this is because the lowest grade for your exams means that that's the material that you did not have a good grasp and understanding on. So that's information that you're going to need to want to spend a little bit more time on. So what I want you to do is I want you to go through all of these exams and all of these piles, and I want you to really review what areas of that exam you did poorly on. Take into consideration, was it the first exam of the semester and you really didn't have a good grasp of how the test was going to set up? Did you experience test anxiety? Did you forget to round on a math problem or add significant figures to chemistry problems? Did you forget or didn't have enough time to cover a particular subject that was going to be on the exam? Whatever it was, really take a look and figure it out. Then write down those areas that you need to cover a little bit more. Make a list of it. Because these are the areas of your exams that you're going to spend the most time studying and reviewing during your final exam study session. Why do I have you do it this way? Because there is no point in covering information you already know. It's time to focus on things that you need or that need your attention. Now that you know the areas that you need to focus on, it's time to create a cram sheet based on that list that you made, the list of things that you did poorly on in your exams. What you're going to do is you're going to take one sheet. Yes, one sheet, only one, and you're going to fold it in half so that the sheet has 4 different sides to it. And on each of the different sides, you're going to label it with your exams, starting with the exam that you got the lowest grade on. Because again, that's the material that you want to spend most of your time studying when you're going through your final exam study prep. So what are you going to put on this cram sheet? On this cram sheet, you're going to only put main topics, main ideas, need to know information, highlighted in bold, repeated by your professor 1,000 times information. I have been in school since 2010 in college, and every final exam, I can tell you that they never ask for nitty-gritty details on these exams. It's always very general, unless you're only being tested on the last few weeks of the semester. But if it's a cumulative exam, there's no way that they can ask you every single possible thing that they cover during the semester. So they're going to focus on big ideas, things that they talk about all the time. In nursing school, usually what they give are like really common diagnoses, and they always ask questions with like the really big in-your-face sign and symptom, can't miss what this disease is type of questions. It's the same thing with biology, the same thing with chemistry, really big ideas. And this is the only information that you're going to put on your cram sheet. And you're also going to put on there things that you can't remember. So if you can't remember lab values, you want to put that information on there. If you can't remember a definition for something or what one particular part of the cell does, whatever, just information that you either have a hard time remembering or really just big ideas. And I promise you that final exams are always really general. So this information is going to be enough because again, you're not learning new information. You're just refreshing your mind on everything that was covered during the semester. It really is and should be just a review. So to recap so far, what I've helped you do is first identify where you stand in your class. Are you borderline passing? Are you way above passing? And then based on that, what are your own personal goals? How far do you want to take this? I've taught you how to evaluate your past exams and identify the information that you need to cover just a little bit more. And now I've helped you use that information to create a cram sheet. So then the next step is to create a study schedule so that now you can figure out when it is that you're going to cover all of this information on your cram sheet. I'm just going to take a sip of water here. So what you need to do first is you need to start the study process 3 to 5 days before your exam. The prep work, the figuring out where you stand, evaluating your exams, that part is done separately. So you need a full 3 to 5 days where you're actually studying before that exam. I used to give myself 4 days because I personally don't like to study the night before the exam. It gives me anxiety when I do that. But I know a lot of people are the complete opposite, and they study right up until they're like walking into the room. So what I've done is I've based the study schedule on 3 days instead of 4 to 5. So what you're going to need to do after you figured out when it is that you need to start studying so that you have 3 to 5 days before the exam is you're going to split up your study sessions into AM sessions and PM sessions. And during those AM and PM sessions, you're going to give yourself anywhere from 1 to 3 hours to cover material. And you're going to give yourself plenty of breaks, okay? I personally study for 50 minutes at a time. I give myself a 10-minute break. There are other people that do an hour, then give themselves a half-hour break. Whatever works best for you, but I really, really, really suggest that you don't just study through and do like a marathon study sessions because you're not going to remember anything. And there are so many studies on that, on how our brain works, and it's best if you give yourself breaks while you're studying. When you do start studying, that first day of your study schedule, you're starting with the information that you knew the least. So the exam that was your lowest. Why? Because you want more time to review that information because, like I mentioned before, why are you going to waste time on things that you already know? There's no point in covering information on an exam that you got 100 on if you already know that information. You need to focus your attention on the exam that you got a 50 on because clearly you need to be reviewing that information more because you didn't grasp it the first time around. So that's where you need to focus your attention. So that's why we start day 1 with the lowest exam grade material. And the day before, the last day of your study session, that's going to be a final review. So that's going to be the day that you review just everything. So again, you're getting not only just the that last day of information, but you're getting the lowest exam grade information. So you get to repeat it multiple times. So what I've done on the next slide, because this can get a little confusing, is I've given you a visual of how I personally would set up my study session per day when I'm studying for finals. And the way I set it up is I have 2 final exams that are both going to be on Thursday, and they're for 2 separate classes. So if I'm giving myself 3 to 5 days to study before the exam, I need to start studying on Monday, which means that all the prep work needs to have been done either over the weekend or before that. So talking about the cram sheet and reviewing the exam, all that information needs to have been done by Sunday so that I can start studying on the Monday. Okay, so here we are. I have 2 exams on Thursday. One is for biology and the other one is for history. And on this schedule, I'm starting with, the way I split it up is I did bio in the AM session and I did history in the PM session. If you only have 1 exam on Thursday, then the other option that you can do is do the lowest exam 1 in the morning, exam 2 in the evening, exam 3 in the morning on Tuesday, exam 4 in the afternoon. So you can break it up that way. But in this case, what I've done is I've broken it up by class. So on Monday between 8 and 10 a.m., I'm going to be studying my lowest grade for biology, which was exam 1, which always tends to be the case. Like the first exams, you don't do so hot because you're just starting to grasp the information and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be studying from 8 to 10. And as you notice, I took a half-hour break before I started studying for the second lowest exam grade. Why? Because I don't want to do marathon study sessions. I also gave myself 10-minute breaks between that 8 to 10 hour period. But I want 30 minutes where I can go maybe get a workout in or have breakfast or just regroup before I have to do another 1 to 3 hours of studying. So then between 10:30 and 12:30, I'm studying the second lowest exam grade, which was for me was exam 2 for bio in this example. Then you'll notice that between 12:30 and 2, I'm not doing anything. I have nothing scheduled. That's me time. That's me time to either maybe work on a paper for another class that might be due. It's time that I can go and have lunch with my friends. It's time that I can go to the gym. It's time that I can just not be thinking about school or working on another class that's not related to biology or history. So then my second study session is in the PM. And I'm studying my lowest history exam grade first, because again, you want to spend the most amount of time on information that you don't have down 100% pat, and the less amount of time on information that you do have a good understanding on. So I'm starting with exam 3. Again, I'm doing it from 2 to 4, taking a half-hour break, and then going in for the next lowest exam grade from 4:30 to 6:30. And then as you can see, I have nothing scheduled from 6:30 onward, because that's time that I'm going to use to either continue writing my paper for another class, or take a break to go have dinner, or watch some Scandal or something, catch up on Netflix. It's just time for me to regroup so that my brain has time to absorb the information that I just reviewed. And then I would just proceed on Tuesday with the rest of the exams in order, again, of lowest to highest grade. And then on Wednesday, I do one big review of all of the information. I might go and attend a study session. I might do some questions on all the information that I covered. I might just read over my notes a little bit, or do some more questions, or hop online and watch some videos. I'll just do a one big final review. I did it 2 days before the exam because I needed that day of not doing anything, but you can do it up into the day, which would be the Wednesday, and then your test would be Thursday. But this is basically how I would set it up. So now that you have, so far, you know exactly whether you're going to pass or not, and what it's going to take for you to get there, and what you've decided that you actually want to do. You know what parts you really need to get a better handle on by reviewing your exams. You've created a cram sheet based on that information, and now you have a study schedule that you can follow before the final. So all that's left is to actually study, right? I'm going to take another sip because I'm losing my voice here. So then finally what you're going to do is you're going to engage in the actual act of studying. Because to study effectively, there is a particular method that I personally find to be the most effective for me. But what I'm going to say first is the way that you should not study is a method of studying called rote review. Don't ever use this method of studying unless you're being tested on definitions, okay? This method of rote review means that you're just reading your notes over and over and over and over again, hoping that somehow those words will jump into your head and you'll be able to recognize them on the exam. The issue with this is that you're expecting to see that information exactly how you have it written in your notes. And that is not the case when you get to the exam. Most of the time, professors give you information, but they're not going to ask you in the same format that they put it on their PowerPoint slides. Instead, what they're going to ask is for you to apply the information. So if all you've done is try to memorize, you're going to do poorly on the exam. What you should be doing is actively studying. And what actively studying means is taking the information from your PowerPoint slides, your books, the notes that you've written, after you've reviewed them a little bit, take that information and apply it in a similar format as you're going to see it on the exam. So if your exams are multiple choice format, then you should be doing a ton of multiple choice questions on that particular topic. If your exams are essay based, then you should be practicing writing essays based on the information that you're given. And usually professors have main ideas that they cover, and these are usually classes like history and English that they'll ask you to do these essay questions, and they'll have like big ideas, and you can try to create your own, little short essay questions that you can practice reviewing. Stand up while you're studying and lecture to yourself. I used to do this all the time. I would pace around in my room talking to myself and teaching, myself about all these different diseases and their signs and symptoms, and what the doctor would probably order and what I would have to do as a nurse. And I would just sit there and lecture to myself. And then I would do a whole bunch of NCLEX style questions because my exams were going to be based on NCLEX style questions. So you need to take the information and then apply it. Some of the methods that you can use is ask yourself questions out loud. Have your friends ask you questions. Lecture on the topic. Do practice problems. Your books have them. And a lot of the times your books come with study guides that will have them. And if you're in any of the science majors, history is really good for this, in English as well. If you go to khanacademy.org, that's KHAN academy.org, they have lectures on like a ton of different subjects, but they're really particularly good with biology and the sciences and chemistries like that. And at the end of each lesson, they have questions that you can practice on. And really good with math as well. For any of you calculus people out there or math majors, that's a really good website to get practice problems. So yeah, do practice problems from your textbooks. A lot of professors will give you practice exams. I actually had a chemistry professor who would give us practice exams before every exam, and they were very similar to the exam that we would actually be taking in class, and it was really helpful. This also happened to me in nursing school with our dosage tests. We would get practice exams so that we would know like what to expect, because at the end of the day, you need to know this information. So that's the reason why your professors are giving it to you, and they're going to do everything possible to help you out. But you also have to take initiative and ask for it. So go to your professors and ask them like, hey, are there any resources that I can be using to help me apply this information so that I can prepare better for my exam? So the last thing that I want to talk to you about here is study groups. I know a lot of people use study groups in college, and it's really hit or miss. I had an incredible study group in nursing school. I kept mine really little. It was just 3 of us, and I love the girls that I studied with. And one of the things that made the study group so effective was that we wouldn't meet unless each of us had studied on our own. And if we did meet where one person maybe didn't catch up on the readings, we made sure not to cover that information because we don't want to waste anyone's time. We want to be there, present, and get the most out of that group study sessions. But the one thing that I would tell you, study groups are not a place to go and have people teach you things, okay? You need to bring something to the table as well. And study sessions should be rapid fire. It shouldn't be like a game of catchphrase. You should just be shooting questions left and right to each other to make sure that you know the information. I can't tell you like how helpful when you do study groups this way they are, because at the end of each of my group studies, I would know exactly what I still needed to go back and review. Because when my friends would ask me questions and I couldn't just spit out the answer, I knew like, oh, I better go back and review this because I didn't know it when so-and-so asked me about it. You get a really clear understanding of what you know and what you don't know during these group sessions when you do them rapid style. And you don't need to get fancy with it. Like we would just use our notes, and like looking at our notes, we would say, all right, so-and-so, what's the symptom of this? What's the medication of this? What are the side effects? And we would just shoot questions and answers back to each other like that. And those were the best study sessions I've ever had. But that is basically it, guys. That is going to be everything that I wanted to cover. It looks like the Q&A isn't working, which I'm really bummed about. But what I will do is if you want to go ahead and leave a comment under the YouTube video, I will be available for the next 30 minutes to respond to you right away. So if you want to go ahead and just leave a comment under the video, I will get back to you during these next 30 minutes. But I really, really, really hope that you guys found this helpful, and I wish you all the best of luck on your final exams. I know that you're going to do awesome, and I love you guys. Have a good night.